Hi there, I'm Mark Teacher and welcome to another weekend worksheet. Today we're going to keep talking about IELTS Speaking Part 2 and we're going to keep describing places. So in today's video you're going to learn how to describe places for longer, and you're also going to see some strong adjectives you can use to describe places. So let's get started. Here I have 4 sentences at the bottom. Each of them are describing a characteristic or a trait about a city. I want you to read the beginning of the sentence and match it to an appropriate ending. The endings are all written here, and the endings are examples that describe and exemplify the trait. For example, it's a coastal city, so there's fantastic seafood. The trait is it's a coastal city. It's a city on the coast. It's a city close to the ocean. So I can expand and explain and give an example, and I can say, so there is fantastic seafood. Because the city is near the coast, there's a lot of seafood, and they probably know how to cook it very well, so there's fantastic seafood. This is a technique you can use to continue talking in IELTS Part 2. You can take a trait or a characteristic, and then you can expand and give an example. So B is, it's a very diverse and multicultural city, which means, what's an example of diverse and multicultural? What kind of things would you find in a multicultural and diverse city? If it's multicultural, you would imagine there are a huge number of religious buildings. Diverse could be diverse religions, Muslims, Christians, Jewish people, all kinds of people mixed up in the same place. I think of places like Bulgaria, which has several different religious buildings all very close together, or Malaysia, where there's a mix of different cultures and religions all coexisting. C is, it's a young and lively city. So what would you expect to find in a young and lively city? A young and lively city probably has a bustling nightlife atmosphere every night. Bustling is another word for busy. Busy is often negative. Busy means it's crowded and there's not a lot of space and it's uncomfortable. But bustling means there's a lot of people and a lot of energy. A positive energy, a positive, fun, lively atmosphere. A pub should be bustling, and it's a place you want to go into. If you see a bustling street, there's a lot of people, and the people are happy to be there. So it's a place that you would like to join in. So, D, it's a tiny village in the countryside. So, what would you expect to see in a tiny village in the countryside? Probably nature everywhere. The hint there was there is. There is because nature is uncountable, so there is a lot of nature. In the countryside, you'll see trees, fields, animals, maybe mountains, so there's nature everywhere. So this is a technique you can use in part 2. You can think of a simple description and then expand by giving an example, talking about the types of buildings or the types of things there are in that area. There's also a couple of strong adjectives here. The strong adjectives are fantastic. Fantastic means very, very good. Fantastic seafood implies delicious seafood. The next strong adjective is huge. Huge means very, very, very big. Huge numbers means very, very many. A lot of religious buildings. And you could argue that bustling is a strong adjective too. Strong adjectives don't need very or really in front of them because their meaning is really big, really delicious, so you don't have to add any other adverbs. If you said it's a really bustling restaurant, that would sound a bit strange. It's a bustling restaurant. It's a huge museum. So using these strong adjectives will improve your vocabulary score. Let's do another set. I've got 4 more traits or descriptions. Let's match their examples. It's a city very close to the equator, which means... So what would you find in a city close to the equator, the center of the earth? There are boiling temperatures all year round. Boiling is the strong adjective. Boiling means very, very hot. So really, really hot temperatures. Countries close to the equator are usually the hottest in the world, so the temperatures are boiling. B, it's in the north of Canada, so what would you expect to find in the very north of Canada? Probably freezing weather in winter. Canadian winter is extremely cold. It's an extremely cold environment. So freezing means very, very cold. C, it's a tropical island in Thailand. So what would you expect on a tropical island? Beautiful, deserted beaches everywhere. An island like Koh Phangan, Koh Phi Phi, one of the famous tourist destinations in Thailand, have beautiful beaches. There's another strong adjective, which is deserted. Deserted means very, very quiet and empty. If you are lucky to go on a deserted beach, you are the only person on that beach. You have the whole beach to yourself. You are the only one you can see, the only one standing on the sand. It is deserted. Deserted can be positive or negative. Depends on where you are. A deserted beach is great. It's peaceful and quiet. A deserted shopping mall is kind of scary and a bit weird. A deserted restaurant may be deserted because the food isn't very good. So it depends on the situation, depends on the place. And finally, it's a city with a lot of history. So, of course, there are many fascinating museums and buildings. The strong adjective is fascinating. Fascinating means really, really interesting. When you learn about it, you go, wow, okay, that's interesting. Fascinating museums, fascinating places. You may have friends who tell fascinating stories. It's very, very interesting. Again, this technique helps you talk for longer, which improves your fluency, and throwing in strong adjectives like boiling, freezing, beautiful, fascinating will also improve your vocabulary score. This vocabulary is appropriate and relevant for describing places because it shows an awareness of style. You will read these adjectives in travel magazines, and you'll see these adjectives describing tourist attractions. So this vocabulary is relevant, it's not over the top, it's not too dramatic. So here's some phrases you can use to expand different ideas. In the box, I have several options. Which means there are. it has or they have. So the traffic is usually, although this noun can be replaced with so the people are usually, the streets are usually, because it's so there are. So in the mornings, in the afternoons, or in the evenings, the place is. It's pretty common to see, where you can try. The only downside is. So here you can use these phrases to expand and keep talking about a place for longer. Think about what can you physically do in these places. That's an easy way to come up with more examples. It's very difficult, even for native speakers, to describe the shape and the color and the design of a building. So instead, talk about what you can do there and why that's interesting or fascinating or exciting. So, for example, there are huge buildings all over the city. Maybe I'm talking about, I don't know, New York or Kuala Lumpur or something like that. Kuala Lumpur. So it's pretty common to see people taking pictures. So there are huge, beautiful buildings where you can see the detailed medieval architecture. I said medieval, so maybe it's not New York or Kuala Lumpur. Maybe it's somewhere like Paris, where it has older architecture, or maybe somewhere in Germany. Huge, beautiful buildings, because it's the financial center of the city. Maybe there are huge, beautiful buildings, so there are lots of tourists taking pictures there. There are huge, beautiful buildings, so we took a lot of pictures of them. So there are many different ways you can expand and describe just by saying what you physically do. Tourists take pictures. People go there. You can see the detailed architecture. Giving physical examples helps you talk for longer. There's one more. The only downside is that you get cold because you're always walking in the shadow of a building. So I'm going to give you another prompt or characteristic, and I want you to think of some ways you can give an example or explain using the phrases above. There are delicious restaurants all over the place. So, what can you physically do? What is there if there are delicious restaurants all over the place? So, if there are delicious restaurants, I could say, so many of them are bustling, very busy in a good way, in the evenings. If there's delicious food, there should be a lot of customers. Maybe people go there for dinner, so the restaurants are bustling in the evenings. Any other ideas? Maybe there are delicious restaurants all over the place where you can try some Michelin star food. Michelin star is a rating, an award given to restaurants which have excellent food. Some of the best food in the country are awarded Michelin stars. There are delicious restaurants all over the place. Maybe because it's in Paris, which is a food capital. It's the capital of France, and you can also have a food capital, a city that's known for its good cuisine. One more. There are delicious restaurants all over the place, which means it's difficult to decide where to eat. Maybe you are spoiled for choice. Maybe there are so many restaurants around, it's difficult to choose because they're all good. Okay, let's do another one. The beaches are absolutely beautiful. So let's expand and let's keep talking about those beaches. What can you physically do at beautiful beaches? The beaches are absolutely beautiful. So it's pretty common to see people sunbathing or taking selfies in the surf. The surf is the part of the beach where the water meets the beach. The waves often crash and creates this white foam. That's the surf. You can stand in the surf and the water comes up to your shins or your knees. I realised I wrote sunbathing. The beaches are absolutely beautiful. Maybe it's where you can have a massage. In some beaches, in tourist places, a masseuse can give you a massage while you lay on the sand, listening to the waves. That sounds very relaxing. The beaches are absolutely beautiful. And the beaches have white sand and bright blue water. Those are the beaches you see in magazines or in travel brochures. Perfect white sand, bright blue water. And maybe the beaches are absolutely beautiful because it's next to a tropical gulf. A gulf is a body of water. If it's next to a nice, clean, warm gulf of water, then you often have beautiful beaches right beside it. So those are 4 ways you could expand talking about beaches. I think I've got one more. The museum is full of fascinating exhibits. So, what can you physically do, or what happens in a place with fascinating exhibits? So, there are lots of interesting things to learn about. Let's imagine you're in London, about British history. The museum is full of fascinating exhibits, which means it's a popular place for field trips for schools. In museums, schools often take their students so they can learn and interact in a new way. The museum's full of fascinating exhibits. They have a huge collection of ancient artifacts from all over the world. And the museum is full of fascinating exhibits. So the place is usually very busy during the summer months. Museums are often popular tourist attractions, so it's not surprising they would be busy during summer, which is usually a peak tourist season. So there you go. Next time you have to describe a place, use this box, use these phrases to help you expand, explain, and keep talking about a place. That way you should reach 2 minutes fairly comfortably, and you can keep expanding and explaining and improve your fluency score as well. If you can use strong adjectives like fascinating, beautiful, fantastic, huge, then your vocabulary score increases too. Combine them together and your IELTS score should get a boost. If you want to see those techniques and practice more of them yourself, you can find them in the Part 2 worksheets that are available in my store. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you want to get the next worksheet as soon as it's available, and see the other weekend worksheets that I've done over the past few months. If you have any questions, send me a message in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, see you next weekend. Bye-bye.